You're listening to Guitar Talk with Dave and John. Hey, welcome back to Guitar Talk. I'm Dave.
Good morning, it's John here, and welcome to the NAMM edition.
Yeah.
What's our show called?
Wait a minute. NAMM? I had written down NAMBLA. Wait a second. Let me make sure I've looked up the right things.
I don't want to know what your top 5 is for NAMBLA. Oh, God. Oddly enough, that's happening at the San Clemente Hilton.
Right. Across from another NAMBLA, which will be the North American Marlon Brando lookalikes.
Oh, that's the best. Did you hear that Chris Hansen got in trouble this weekend for writing bad checks?
Oh, no, really?
Oh, yeah. Apparently he had some work done on either his house or an office or something. I'm not sure, but it was like a $30,000 tab, and he wrote the guy a bad check. And so I'm wondering if anybody, anybody brought him in. And,
right. What are you doing?
Sit down, have a seat.
Do you know what you're doing?
It's the NAMM edition, folks. NAMM is this week, starting Thursday. If you are in Southern California and you're a nerd, you're probably going to try and get in there.
Yeah. And for those that have watched my show, know I'm not a tremendous fan of NAMM. It is basically like going to Guitar Center in a large convention center. And it's
Guitar Convention Center.
Yeah. Right, Guitar Convention Centers, right.
Oddly enough, there's also a guitar show that happens in Orange County that's like a vintage guitar show that happens over the duration of the NAMM show.
Yeah.
And it's a really big one, and I think they do that for the obvious reason that all of the owners and buyers are in town that weekend. So I think they bank on the fact that store owners and buyers are going to be at the NAMM show for a couple days, and they will also go to this used and vintage show.
Yeah, and as I've said before, the LA AM show is one of my favorite shows to go like that to go to.
Shout out to Lonnie.
That's right. And Lonnie is bringing the show to Boston. For anybody on the East Coast, it will be in Boston in April. I'll give more dates, and I'll have Lonnie actually on one of the podcasts with us. He said as it gets closer to the date, he'd pop on.
That'd be cool.
That's real cool. So what I'd want to bring up, though, is, there are some things about NAMM that I always liked. And some of them are like when I go to the pedal guys and the boutique pedal guys, it's cool to hear a drive or hear something where it's like, ooh, I like that. And I did work a year at NAMM behind Zachary Vex's booth, and I wasn't a fan of those pedals, and I'm not really a big fan of Z-Vex. But Wampler one year, I really loved his booth, and which might have been like 2012 maybe. And Diamond pedals I always liked. But what I wanted to ask you, John, is
sure.
Did you ever see something at the NAMM show where you're like, that was cool, and then it came out under like a different moniker / business?
I'd have to spend some time thinking about that. Off the top of my head, no, nothing really comes to mind.
Well, what makes me think of it is
I need to warm up before I can answer that question.
Oh, no worries. One year I went to NAMM, and it was Lee and I walking around, and Lee was like, I've got to go to this company. They make mic pre's, and all I remember is we walked in a maze. I had no idea where the hell I was. And we walk into this small room, and there's these German guys, and they're like, we're a company called Tronicals. We make automatic tuning tuners.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I was like, oh, this is cool. This might have been either 2005 NAMM or 2006. But anyways, Tronicals was It might have been 2006. Now that I think about it, January, but it was really cool. And they showed it on a Strat, and then they were like, "Oh, we have a Gibson style." But then later that year, or was it the next year, Gibson comes up with the robot guitar, and it's basically the Tronical tuners on top of a Gibson. But I mean, if anybody ever wanted, and it's still in business, it's a German company. You can go on, and I believe it's Tronical, Tronical, and they make them for Strats, BC Rich, ESP, Ibanez. They make basically robot tuners for any guitar that you would have, and you can buy them. I think they range from like 200 to $350. But
Yeah, very cool.
I remember seeing that and thinking like, but I thought Gibson made a horrible mistake when every guitar came out with those.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty well-known industry blunder, I think. God, what was it, 2016 or 15?
So.
They had every single guitar in their standard and traditional line came with the robot tuners, as well as that adjustable height brass nut.
Yeah.
It was either 15 or 16. I can't remember.
It's funny. I watched a podcast the other day, and Tone King was talking about Gibson, and he says he never thought the company was making mistakes, or that he thought that they were not doing the right thing or giving people what they want. And I was thinking to myself, because I've seen his channel, and all the guitars I've seen him buy, a Gibson hasn't been one of them. So there's your answer to when people say, well, I don't think, just ask, how many have you bought? If it seems to be the non-buying Gibson guys who are like, oh, I think they're doing all right. Yeah, because you don't play their guitars. Now, again, they've come out, and this would be one of my new products, I think, for our topic here. So you have Gibson down on your list?
No.
Okay,
no,
good.
I'm just glad that they're going to be at the show this year because they skipped last year.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of these guys, well, I mean, I think a lot of times people are thinking like, why does Gibson even go? Because they don't make it very people friendly. It's all private, setting up for the business. And really that's what NAMM is anyways. It's really for the shop owner to say, hey, you know what? I don't want to carry Jackson and I don't want to carry Ibanez. I'm going to go see some new company. Oh, Grover Jackson's building a new. It's much more for the store to figure out their product line.
I just go for the food.
Of course, yeah. The Elio's Pizza and the
fine garbage can lid cuisine that we get there, and then of course I also go so that I can bring my wife and we can dress like we're at the 1984 Slippery When Wet Bon Jovi concert tour.
Nice. But I read,
it's so silly.
I read that Gibson is coming out with a new line of classic models, and like one of them is the 50s spec it's called Les Paul Classic 50s spec. Now,
that
John,
could be cool.
Before you say anything, tell me one feature that you would expect to see on a guitar with that moniker.
50s spec Les Paul Classic. One feature I would expect.
Yes.
I would expect not a slim taper neck, a fatter neck. Right.
Slim taper neck comes on this guitar because
the classics all come that way, which is
it is a 50 spec, but we kept it. Yeah, so they got a new owner, a new guy running the company. Let's do what we've always done. People want a 50 spec, but they want a thinner neck. That's why we haven't been selling any. It's like, what?
Yeah.
How about
what makes it 50 spec if it's not for the neck? Because that's the way that I would.
Hallelujah.
That's the way I would look at that guitar line.
It just looks like a 58, sunburst. Cherry.
I'm curious to see what Gibson rolls out otherwise. You know what? I'm honestly most looking forward to seeing with Gibson is how they treat people not wearing a buyer's badge, because it's new upper management at Gibson. So historically, over the last, I don't know how many years, the last 10 years, if you're not wearing a buyer's badge at the show, you can't get into the Gibson booth.
Right.
So I'm curious if they're changing their attitude to a more public-friendly, sort of approachable business model.
Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting to see, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, who knows? So, hey, have you seen the new Supro David Bowie signature model?
no.
It's important. It's important for you to know that Supro is unveiling a David Bowie signature model. I don't know why I'm laughing right now. I think it's because of your response to that. So apparently, at some point in time, David Bowie played a duotone or something like that from Supro, and dual tone, yeah. And so, from Beyond the Grave, he has given his gracious acceptance to this wonderful honor of having a Supro guitar named after him. So we'll be looking at that. Are you a Bowie fan?
I am a Bowie fan to the respect of I like his hits. Other than that, I don't care. I don't think of him as a player. So, I mean, if it was like the Mick Ronson model, I'd understand. But to throw David Bowie's name on it, I just don't get it or care. Why can't they just make a duotone?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm looking at the photo, and I don't know if you can edit photos into this
Yes, if you send it to me.
Yeah, I'm looking at the photo, and apparently the original one that he played, because there is a photo of him playing one,
Right.
it has an all black headstock with the Supro badge on the headstock, and then the
we're talking about a guitar,
right,
not an amp.
Right. And the new signature model looks pretty much the same, but there's a couple of differences I'm seeing. And it appears that a white binding of some sort around the outside of the headstock, and there's a new Bowie logo on the headstock. But other than that, it looks the same. Right. It's a dual humbucker with a Bigsby. Kind of has like a bit of an airline look to it, 1950s kind of look.
Sure.
I don't hate the guitar. It's all right. I'd be curious to see how that's received. I always wonder about this, like, whenever a company comes out with like a Beyond the Grave signature model, it's kind of, makes me wonder. I don't know.
Well, if somebody has a rock and roll themed man cave or game room, that would look, I'm sure, splendid on somebody's wall.
Yeah.
That's all I can imagine who would buy it.
So I guess that would be a guitar that's released for the fanboys.
Who else would buy it?
I don't know. We're on the topic of signature stuff, and NAMM is going to be a glut of signature products.
Of course.
Are you aware that Slayer has announced that they are no longer touring? This past tour was their farewell tour. And if done anywhere like Kiss has done in the past, they'll have about 6 or 7 more tours, but for now they say it's their last one. You're aware of that? Yes, no, maybe?
I wasn't aware that they had a first tour.
Well,
I'm not a Slayer fan. I can't Well, you were working at the store when we had Kerry King's the clinic with his Marshall head, the the 2203 KK.
Yeah. What's up, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah, that head. Anyway, I figured now that Slayer is no longer touring, there would be no better time for EMG to release their Tom Araya signature bass set. So we've got bass pickups from Tom Araya.
And now who is this guy?
Well, it's bass pickups, so I'm guessing that he's the rhythm guitar player.
No, but who's he the bassist for?
For Slayer.
Oh, okay. No
That's
idea.
no, that's the that's the bit. It's like, okay, they've announced they're no longer going to be playing,
Right.
so let's throw out a signature line of pickups for this guy. Just it's like, what? Is this just an industry side hustle here? He's like, look, I'm not going to be touring anymore. I'm going to need some cheddar for the next couple of years. What do you think about, throwing my name on a product? Give me a
Yeah.
royalty.
Yeah, I don't get any of this. I don't understand why the people who like, let's say you like Tom Araya, is that his name?
Yeah.
Let's say you like Tom Araya's tone. Well, if at that time you liked his tone, you would find out what he's using for a rig. And I'm sure he's using some stock set of EMGs. So why are we throwing his name on it? Because now Rob Turner over at EMG is going to say, yeah, but on his, I used a special circuit. What?
Right.
It's like, come on. Um, yeah, I find this, it's like, well, I mean, the funny thing is it's perfect for NAMM because what they do is they come out with this signature series. They won't sell, so they'll have them on for a year, but they'll have Tom at the EMG booth doing a signing with all the young kids that love Slayer in line. Because I remember what company used to have Ingve signing and have God, I mean, all these companies, they just have like all these people signing stuff, and it's like it becomes like the circus. And this
Well,
stuff never
yeah,
lasts.
I
It
get it.
disappears a year later into oblivion. But they had that release at the NAMM thing so they could have something to announce.
Maybe that's part of it. Maybe having the artist there is something to draw in uh the guitar store employee who happens to be running around the show, just so that they make sure they don't forget, because they've got to experience the fan side of themselves as well as the business side. There's
Sure.
nothing wrong with that. I mean, I get it, but I do think it's kind of odd that like all of this stuff happens like at the end of somebody's career instead of like while they're riding the wave of their career. Like, why didn't this pickup set come out in '94 when Slayer was like still really hot for a metal band, still selling records and playing big places, and Rolling Stone was still talking about them?
During that time, EMG probably had other artists. They had like the David Gilmour pickup set, and they had other things that they probably felt were more important. And now that Slayer's making a buzz, maybe doing a last stint tour, hey, listen, we got the pickups, and we'll support the tour or what. I mean, who knows? Who cares? I mean, I always feel like all these companies are basically trying to make a better mousetrap, and in the mousetrap business um, it's still a who cares. Like the old method worked tried and true. So some people want the bells and whistles, but nothing's a big deal. I mean, there's a company that I sent to you last night. The guy's name is Rukangas. I guess his last name is, and who knows if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but his product is called the Valve Bucker.
Right.
And I just
Seen a
don't
little bit of
understand.
press on this.
Yeah, so the valve bucker is basically a humbucker that runs on two 12AX7 tubes. And you need a special, which this part I like because this guy is the only guy who I feel has thought about something that is extremely clever. And I'll explain that in a second. But basically, he has a box, like a foot pedal, that acts kind of somewhat like a buffer AB box, but it powers the pickups.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
why there hasn't been
He
somebody
said,
else?
I was going to say he's sending phantom power up that XLR cable. I will
Yes.
give him credit. I really appreciate the fact that he used an XLR cable instead of a proprietary design.
My point is what I was just going to make.
Oh, sorry.
Why hasn't why hasn't EMG or any of these active preamp companies come up with, hey, listen, you're going to have to switch to an XLR, and here's the box because you're using pedals. Here's one that's going to send the 12 volts up to your guitar. Boom, done. That was the most brilliant thing the guy did. If anybody could take anything out of this guy, it's if you're going to make an active guitar, feed it with an XLR cable and not a 1/4 inch. It just makes sense. And also, I think if you're feeding it with an XLR, you might even be able to do the same exact thing. Yeah, I might be mistaken here, but I don't think I am. With a tip ring sleeve stereo cable.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So therefore, why somebody hasn't come up with this and have the whole thing where you have either a battery compartment or you have, do you remember there was that company that came to us and it was a tuner in the volume knob, knob. And I said to the guy, well, how do I change the batteries? Like, you got to take the pick guard off. And I'm like, get out of here.
Right,
Just,
right.
we're not interested. And he got all mad and went to Don, and Don came downstairs and Don was like trying to talk me into the product. And I said, Don, ask how you change the battery. So Don goes, how do you change the battery? The guy goes, you take the pick guard off. Don goes, off the guitar? He goes, yeah. Don goes, get the hell out of here.
Right.
Because he realized, who the hell would want to do that every time you got to change a battery? That's insane. I said, that's what I was trying to tell you on the phone, but you got to come down and see it for yourself. But it's like, well, this guy,
you know, it's really funny. It's really funny because what you're talking about right now is the concept of building a better mousetrap. If you looked at EMG from late 70s when they started hitting the market through the early part of the 80s, it would have been the same thing. If you had a Fender style guitar, you'd have probably ripped the pickguard off to change your battery. Mm-hmm. But at some point, they started utilizing those little trap doors for their 9-volt batteries.
Right.
So now you just had a clip, you could undo it, and boom, your trap door opens and you've got your battery out. So this guy, what he's doing is the next step.
Right. It's the best step. To me, it's like you are now eliminating batteries.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, all he's doing, and this is such a simple thing that people should have thought of. So you're talking about tip ring sleeve or XLR. You've got a ground and you've got two hots effectively, and the hots are isolated from each other. So you can use one of them to send your signal down the line into your pedals or into your amplifier, and the other one is just moving the opposite direction, carrying voltage enough to power your pickups.
Right.
So it's really not that crazy. And phantom power, as far as I know, has been around for, I'm guessing it was the 50s or maybe earlier. Who knows? This is certainly not new design.
No. The idea is you're coming up with something and you want to solve a problem and you're trying to have like Rob Turner was trying to solve the problem of, look, I want to have you have microphone quality pickup where it can really just pick up and not compress and give you the clarity, the bass, whatever you want out of it, you can get out of it and you can. But now you have a battery. It's like, here's a guy comes right out of the gate and he's like, yeah, I solved that dumb issue.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the downside is you've got to have an additional pedal on your board, but most of us have real estate for that, so I don't think that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to do the dance and you're buying this guitar or you're putting EMGs in because you're trying to have a better tone, then yeah, a pedal, what's wrong with having a pedal?
Right. So, because we can't let a cool new design exist without just completely trashing it.
No.
What what do we think about the guitar itself? I saw a photo of it. It looks like a Telecaster. The pickup looks like a Gretsch-style humbucker dropped right in the middle of the pickguard. There's no bridge pickup. There's no neck pickup. It's like a middle humbucker position pickup.
Well, if you look closely at that circle,
yeah,
you could see the tubes underneath. You could see the tubes underneath. They run opposite. Yeah.
It looks like a hubcap, kind of.
Yeah. Here's what I think of it. Was the tone enough that I would want to run out and grab it, or could I just go into a tube amplifier? I could just go into a tube amp and get that sound. I
Well,
don't see the need for it.
Let me get nerdy for a second because I am curious what your take is on this. This guy's basically supplying it with, what did he say, 12 volts?
Mm-hmm.
So he's supplying it with 12 volts. By the time your guitar amplifier does its song and dance with the 12AX7s that are on board inside of your guitar amplifier, it's spitting out somewhere in the neighborhood of 480 volts to the power tubes. It's an enormous amount of voltage that's coming out of the preamp tubes and going to the power tubes.
Well, the preamp tubes are not. Oh, you mean on an amplifier itself?
On an amplifier, yeah.
Right, but that's not the way the pickups are designed. He designed those. Yeah,
I understand that, but I'm just saying, like, from the perspective of when people get the idea in their head that tubes act and sound a certain way, you've got to realize how much voltage is happening in and around those tubes. I know the very first gain stage when it goes in your guitar is not sending a very powerful signal. That's why you need an amplifier, obviously.
I think what the tubes do when they run, like when you're saying his tubes run cool.
Right.
When you run a tube like that, I think what you're getting out of it is compression. That's what because I get it. I use the Takamine Cool Tube preamp, and it runs on a 9-volt.
Okay.
Would I bring a box out if it would power the guitar and I never had to deal with a battery again? Absolutely, 100%. But I use the Cool Tube preamp. And when you add it, you can blend it in, and basically what it adds is like a warmth and compression. Now, is the warmth something that they're doing EQing it wise with what it's going to go through? Probably. I don't know or care. It just sounds all right. And but you don't plug an acoustic guitar into a tube amplifier. I'm plugging it into a solid state mixer direct, so I do like that tube there. Here in this guy's idea, the tube is in the guitar that is intended to plug into another tube amp. So it basically is acting like something a compressor pedal could do.
It's an onboard Kasha rock mod.
Well, the rock mod acts as a preamp tube before a gain stage. This guy is just using it. I mean, he's using it really like the Takamine Cool Tube preamp. Right. He's using it as a little light compression and warmth in the pickup before going into the tube amp. But the tube amp will provide that if you have it set the way you want it set.
Well, let's see what the market thinks.
Yeah.
The NAMM show, it's going to be shown. And what's the guy's name? Give him a shout out.
Well, the product's called Valve Buckers, and the guy's name is Juha, Juha, and his last name is Are You Okay? Are You Okay?
I am.
Angas. Rakangas. Okay. Rakangas. I don't know where he's.
German guy, right?
Yes. Must be. But, and his knockoff guitars look pretty cool. Like, he looks like he's a decent guitar maker. I guess he's a builder and he builds guitars, and they're very, they're reminiscent. One's a Les Paul, one's a Strat, one's a Tele. So, I mean, in that respect, everything's good. But for the most part.
Yeah. Well, let's see what everybody says about it. Hopefully it gets some traction and he didn't waste too much time and energy on something that ends up failing, because that kind of sucks. You don't want to see that happen to anybody. But let's move along. I am very curious about some of the new finishes. I know this is like a nerdy thing that nobody cares about, but Ibanez and ESP both are announcing a boatload of new finishes, and I saw some sneak peeks. And I have to say there's one that I really kind of like, and I saw it first last year, and I think more people are going to start doing this because it's just a different look. So you take the traditional sunburst approach, right? You got the dark outer edges, you got the light interior. I'm seeing from a lot of these companies now, what they're doing is they're doing a fade that goes from like the front of the guitar to the back of the guitar. You know what I'm talking about? So like the front of your guitar will be like a flame, everything goes, flame maple top, transparent finish. The front of the guitar might be like a gray trans whatever, and then as it fades to the back of the guitar, it goes black. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's kind of a different take on a burst approach. But I have to admit, I kind of like it. I've seen a handful of guitars that look kind of cool that way.
Didn't PRS make a Dimiola guitar like that years ago?
Oh, they made the rainbow one. Yeah,
Yeah,
they called it Prism, but everybody knows it's a rainbow.
right.
Yeah, the Demiola guitar had it was like 7 different colors, right?
Yeah,
All faded as it went along. But I'm talking about like a smooth gradient fade.
right.
Yeah, there's some good looking finishes out there. And oddly enough, a lot of it is coming from the mid price point lines. It's not coming from the Japanese factory, it's coming from the Korean factories and the
Right.
Indonesian factories. So it's interesting to see like how good the finishing technology is in some of these what some of you may still consider third world countries. Not that Korea is third world, but Indonesia, for example.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't. I don't know. If I remember
Clearly
correctly,
doesn't turn you on.
no, no. Well, if I remember correctly, you were like a red guitar player and a white guitar player, and I liked black and natural back in the day.
Right.
But
Yeah.
so I'm not really too big on paint finishes. But one of the products that I saw that was coming out was that Godin was coming out with an indigo burst that was going to be released at NAMM, and I was just like, who cares? Like, it's a color and it's a paint job, but it's basically a Strat, and I don't see. Yeah, I mean, what else can you do? Really, when you think about it, you're coming up with guitars. It's like, I find it hard to get excited about stuff. Like something that I saw recently that I was really excited about was Fender had released a Tweed Deluxe 57 hand wired. To me, that was an important amp. It should have never been stopped. To me, that amp is as iconic as the 1959 X, if you will, by what AH? Yeah, H, whatever the hell the letter they use for hand wired. But yeah, it's as important as that amp, and yet it wasn't made for years. And only companies like Victoria and Vintage Sound were making knockoffs of the 5E3, which we just talked about last week. But now I realize Fender has come out with one.
Right.
Fine.
Well, the misstep that Fender had by not manufacturing that opened up an opportunity for all these other builders to get in the game. So, I mean, business-wise, it's probably a misstep from them. But for us out there, it's great because now we have all these options.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that they wouldn't have stopped making it because, but they would have maybe improved on it. So maybe it wasn't good for us because you have Friedman who came out making Plexi reissue type amps, but improvements to the Plexi.
Right.
Because if you want a Plexi, Marshall hasn't stopped selling it.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Sure.
So that's always an option too that we may have, but Vintage Sound anyways, that company, he does do all the mods that he would have liked in the amp better, which is kind of why I like his company, that he goes back in time and be like, well, this is what I would have done with hindsight,
Right. So
which is nice. So
nice. What's the biggest product of the show going to be?
I don't know. What do you think?
The Jimmy Page Dragon Telly?
Yeah, that'll be a big thing. A more expensive piece for your musically themed man cave.
Now, I don't know the ins and outs of it. I don't know if Fender's doing like a super limited run of custom shop pieces, or if they're going to be releasing a second level version of it or whatever. But if it comes out like they do most of these releases, this is going to be like a $20,000 guitar, and there's going to be like 25 of them made. They did that with like the Yngwie guitar when they did the Yngwie guitar.
Yeah.
The one that they did a few years ago, the Relic one.
Mhm.
Anytime they do the Relic ones, that's what ends up happening. It's like this $20,000 instrument. They do a limited run, and then sometimes they'll release like either a Japanese or a Mexican or maybe even an American standard version of it that looks almost like a cartoon version of it.
Yeah. Well, they
You
did
say,
it with
well,
the
this one's $8.99. You can get this one.
They did it with the Gilmore, except they came out with the Relic and then the new version.
Mm.
You know. But yeah.
Was the new version custom shop as well?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, okay. See, I like that idea. You're like, you don't want the old one. All right, we've got how it would have looked when he bought it, and it's still a good guitar. Because I think
Well,
most of the time,
it wasn't how it
these
looked when he
companies.
bought it. It wasn't how it looked when he bought it. It
Oh,
was
okay.
how it would look new if his guitar, the way it is, were to come like that brand
Right.
new. Because his was just a black 70, was it a 71 Strat with a white pick guard? It would have looked nothing
Right.
like
Right. Well,
like
but at least it's not like the typical price disparity thing that I'm talking about, where you get like the $5,000 one and then the $500 one, and the $500 one just looks like a total cheeseball version.
right.
You see that a lot with a lot of these type of products.
Yeah.
I like it. It'd be nice if they had like but I guess that may be necessary for them to be able to justify selling the upper end one, because if they made the lower end one look too close or too good, there wouldn't be a lot of motivation for people who are collectors to buy the upper end one.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's a sad state of affairs if that's up for contention of something that's like the most exciting thing. I mean, I really don't care about gear so much as if something were to help me to work. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like if someone says to me, "Oh, Fender's coming out with a Strat that now has a big fat 56 V-neck on it and stainless steel frets and DiMarzio area pickups," I would be like, "Oh, well, I'll take a look at that." Otherwise, I don't care because I have to go do all that stuff to it anyways.
In terms of guitars, all right. Well, let's talk about some utility things, because there's a utility piece that came out that I'm curious how it's going to do. For years, as you know, I do this home studio nonsense with like
Mm-hmm.
interface and recording software and all that. And the people are always releasing products that are aimed directly at guitar players. Line 6 had their interfaces, was it 10 years ago? Had like the UX3 and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, might have been a
Um,
little earlier.
yeah, but everybody always has these things, and basically it's an interface. It has A to D converters, D to A converters, and you can listen to your crappy home recordings through these things, as I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, a few different companies this year are doing things again directly aimed at guitar players. The one that I thought was interesting was a collaboration between a company called Audient. Audient makes, they've been making interfaces for a while. And then this other company called Two Notes. Have you heard of Two Notes?
No,
Okay, so Two Notes is
I smoked two notes and then I smoked two notes. And then I smoked two notes.
I have no idea what that is.
Two joints by well, Sublime did it, but it's an old reggae song. I
Oh, right,
smoked two
right.
joints and then I smoked two joints. Then I smoked two joints.
I don't remember that. I thought you were
Okay,
gonna
so
do
two
that like
notes.
something, 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 and then I got high.
Uh,
Yeah, so Two Notes anyways is a French company, and they're kind of like the next generation of Palmer. You remember Palmer Speaker Simulator?
I do remember Palmer.
Yeah. So it's the next generation of that, where now it's still a load box manufacturer, so you can load down your amp head without having a speaker cabinet. Um, Except instead of it having like a switch that allows you to have like analog filtering that mimics a certain guitar cabinet, they have digital impulse responses that you can load into it, so you can get like a whole variety of colors of different cabinets and whatever. Anyways, they got together and they're producing something called a Sano. So for guys that are doing home recording who are listening to the show, this might be something that you put on your radar. Sano, Sono, collaboration from Audient and Two Notes. And what they're doing is they're using the interface design that Audient has, but they're using cabinet and power amp simulation that Two Notes has developed, and it's built right into the box. So if you're recording guitar tracks, you can hypothetically plug in a preamp pedal, or you can plug in your guitar right into it, and you're going to get that modeling simulation before you get into your system. So you're going to be printing that sound when you're recording the tracks without having to use any DSP or any power from your computer.
Nice.
So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. I mean, like I said, these things have existed for a long time. It just so happens that this particular collaboration comes from two companies who have a good reputation.
I mean, the thing about it printing, though, takes away the aspect that some people like to, when they're done recording it, A/B some of the cabinets to hear what would sound best. And that is definitely an advantage of modern technology, because back in the day, you record an amp, and put a mic up to it. You're printing it. You're printing that cabinet.
Yep.
So I could say either way, it's win, but it seems like a cool thing. I mean, as long as, some of the recording stuff, to me, that's where the advances have happened. I mean, we could take a look at like what Melodyne has become from its first inception, which I happen to love Melodyne as a program. I think it's fantastic, especially if you're trying to fix something where someone's timing was off for a second on something, or if someone's pitch was out a little bit and you want to just nudge it into the zone of acceptability for you. I think Melodyne, and they're always updating and putting out new stuff. In fact, I think like if to go to NAMM, the pro audio recording area is far more interesting and far more technologically jumping and advancing, whereas you go through the guitars.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, just because of the advances in technology and microchips and everything else, that stuff is clearly going to be the stuff that keeps advancing, especially since us as guitar players, generally speaking, don't let things advance. The instrument kind of comes out, somebody does something new, and we're like, you don't need that.
So, well, I mean, just take a look at what we commented, we were having a comment once, and I was talking about a flatter radius on a neck, and some guy was like, Stevie Ray Vaughan used a 7 1/4 radius. Like, why would I give a shit what Stevie Ray Vaughan is using? It's antiquated, and it's not a very comfortable radius.
Yeah.
They make a better radius. I'm sorry. A 10 radius is a better radius. A 9 1/2 is a better radius. A 12 is a better radius. And
what's Gibson? Gibson's 12, right?
12, yeah.
And they've been doing that for
as long as I can remember any guitar any model ever.
I think one of the cool innovations of guitar over the last 20 something years is the compound radius technology. I love that.
That's great.
I've got a Jackson that has a 10-16. Both of my Warmouths use their compound. What is the Warmouth compound? I can't remember. Is it 10-16?
And yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got two of them like that, and then I have a couple that are more traditional, but I like the feel of the compound radius. If people don't like, Jimi Hendrix didn't need the compound radius. It's like, dude, Jimi Hendrix would have loved the compound radius.
Right.
He would have been able to have better action and bend those notes higher.
Right.
Without it buzzing on the next fret up.
Right. I mean, Hendrix is using like the Dallas Arbiter fuzz, which was brand new and nobody was using then. He was like the first guy to jump on the wah pedal. He was a guy that liked technology and was interested in finding new, different ways to make sounds. So I get a kick out of when people are like, so and so. I mean, and I understand that argument if you're saying you need this. And you don't need like, but I know what it was. It was the John Mayer Strat. I was commenting that PRS
Silver
went
Sky.
back.
Right.
They went back to making a 7 1/4 radius because their company has always made, I believe, a 10,
Yeah.
a 10-inch radius on their necks. And there's a reason why they chose 10. And to me, that was like the staple of the company. So to go back to using a Fender vintage radius, I thought was silly. Like, especially, it's like, if John Mayer were to go to PRS and say, listen, I really love the Strat, but there's elements of it that I want you guys to do and make. And they made the PRS Strat, which they do, the Silver Sky, but it had the 10-inch radius. You could sit there and then argue, or say, well, this is taking what PRS really does well and marrying the two.
Right.
But what John Mayer did by having them go back to the 7 1/4 radius is to say, I want you guys to manufacture my Strat.
Right. Do you remember when we would get people in the store, like celebrity musicians, like we've had, Pete Townsend and Sly from Sly and the Family Stone? They would come in and they would
Sure.
check out some gear. Yeah, they would check out some gear that maybe we weren't hot on because it was goofy. Like I take like a great example would be like the Roland G guitar system. When that thing was out, it was G guitar, V guitar, VG guitar. I don't remember.
No, it was you mean on the Strat?
No, not the pickup itself, but like, well, I guess the
Oh,
pickup's included, but like that MIDI unit
the
thing.
V system, I think it was.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the
Anyway,
TC was the G system.
yeah, you're right. You're right. So the Roland was the VG 101. Now that I'm thinking about it. Anyways,
Mhm.
it would be something that we wouldn't really care that much about. But these guys would come in, and granted, this is just a general example, but these guys would come in and they would see this stuff and they'd be like, God dang, that is like the coolest thing ever. And they would sit down and mess around with it and be like, oh yeah, and like Spiewak and Rick Waite would be selling this stuff to these guys, and we'd be like who would want that? That's so strange.
Yeah.
But the point of it is, these guys didn't have anything like this at all when they were coming up and when they were writing music and they were selling records. And it's not because of this whole thing like, Jimi Hendrix didn't need it. They would have loved to have stuff like this, but they
Yeah.
didn't have stuff like this because it didn't exist. And so these advancements and these products that came out, and part of the reason that the NAMM show is, relevant, I guess, is because we get new stuff. We get to advance. We get to make new sounds. And all of those guys that you look up to probably would have appreciated the fact that there was this glut of product in the marketplace for them to choose from.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with us growing up in the 80s and the 90s as players and all that stuff being thrown at us. And we were like, yeah, we got it real fast and had a grasp of it. And then we didn't care. And yeah, no, I totally agree with that. So what I wanted to ask you is another thing about the NAMM show coming up is, and I mentioned it to you yesterday, was what do you think of some products that went by the wayside that you wish that companies never stopped because they were great products and it really was not a smart thing to stop that product?
The Kaler Spider Tremolo. No, I'm just kidding.
And we'll be seeing you, folks.
Right. I still have a hard time answering this because, and this is probably because I'm fluent in the language of Craigslist and Reverb. So if there's something that I want, I'm going to sniff it out. But in terms of companies that maybe made a bad decision in cutting something off, I'm sure there's a lot of examples. One that I think of is, I've always wanted a Strat in Sonic Blue with a maple fingerboard. I'll make one from Warmouth, but Fender could have my business if they made it. But they don't make it. They discontinued it in '91. And that's just a color combination. It's not a big deal, but it's a bummer that like everything from that particular lineup is white, three-tone sunburst, black, and then whatever the other color is going to be. And so to me, that's not exactly answering your question, but it's in the line there of the question. It's a bummer that they don't give you a cool color palette and they discontinue all of the unique colors year after year, and they just keep throwing the same three at you. That kind
Fender
of
makes like 75 different models of Strat, and all the colors are black, Olympic white, three-tone sunburst, and candy apple red, or some version of a red. Sometimes they sub it with Fiesta red. It's ridiculous. But like, so I'm using the Fender Mustang amp when I do my show. They canceled that amp. They discontinued it. They make a smaller version now that you can, instead of using Fender Fuse and having it plug into your computer, you can on the fly do it with your phone.
Okay.
Translation, they ruined the product.
Mm.
They made the product unusable now to me and to most people that don't want to have to include their phone in every aspect of their life. Somewhere along the line, some companies thought, you know what would be cool is if we could use your iPhone. Yeah.
Marshall did that. The code,
everyone.
Yeah, the Marshall code does that.
It's awful. It's the dumbest thing ever. Oh yeah, what we got to do is we got to incorporate your phone. Yeah. No. And it's a terrible thing. And I thought the Mustangs were great amps, so that's up in my list. There's lately I've been playing bass. The Sterling Classic 4 by Music Man, which is, or is it called a Classic Sterling 4? It's basically like a Stingray with a little bit of a smaller body and a thinner neck. The bass is fantastic. Why they don't make it anymore, I don't know.
Do they have an equivalent replacement?
No.
No? Okay.
It's like, but they make the bongo bass. I mean, who's buying the bongo? This bass is unbelievable. And of course, they discontinued it. I've talked about it before, but the Gibson Swamp Ash.
Mm.
The Swamp Ash, when it came out, ebony fingerboard, no dots, no nothing. It looked awesome. Came with a hard shell case. And what did they do? We'll throw rosewood on it, put dots on it, made it look ugly, give it with a gig bag or whatever. It's like, listen, if the case costs you $100 and the gig bag costs you $40, raise the guitar price. People are okay with you raising the price on a friggin' cool instrument like that. But to ruin it and then come out with it, it's just like, to me, it's like it's gone by the wayside. So there's a lot of products that I see where I'm like, why would they ever get rid of that? And
one popped into mind when you were talking about that Swamp Ash, and that would be from PRS. The original run of CE 22s and 24s, not the SE series, the CE series, which is the bolt-on maple neck. That used to be a much nicer guitar than the current offering. The current offering of the CE 24, they don't even do the 22 anymore, but the 24, the carve of the top of the instrument is not what it used to be. It used to be carved the same way the custom 22 and custom 24 were. The only difference was the bolt-on neck. Now, the difference is it's a much more subtle carving. It looks more like it's a part of their PRS standard series rather than the legit USA stuff.
Right.
And so it's a disappointment that when I saw those in person for the first time, it wasn't what I remember from the CE22s of 10, 15 years ago before they discontinued that. So,
yeah. I mean, okay. So what about, here's what I think's crazy. So I thought I would write down some products that I thought were great over the last, 25, 20 years. And I realized, well, I'll just tell you what they are and you'll see what I mean. NYXL strings.
Okay.
I think they're fantastic. I love them. Dunlop's Ultex Sharps.
Mm-hmm.
These.
Yep.
Love them.
Yep.
Pedal train boards. And with pedal train boards, Voodoo Labs pedal power.
Yep. Good stuff.
And then the only other thing I put in there was I thought the Hot Rod series of amps from Fender,
So what are we talking about right now? Innovations that you thought were good, smart moves.
the only things to me that matter over the last
Right.
25.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like,
Um,
I mean, maybe the area pickups as well, because
yeah,
I
the
love
area
those.
pickups are good. If I was gonna just brainstorm for a quick second and pull out a couple of things that I think were huge improvements for me, I totally agree with the Dunlop Sharps, the Ultex Sharps. I love those picks. I think they're great. I'm fascinated by interfaces. I'll probably pick up a new one in a couple of weeks. I have my eye on something. So I think that technology where you can get your latency down below 5 milliseconds nowadays with like Thunderbolt connectivity, I love that. That's absolutely fascinating to me. The emergence of boutique pickup builders that are selling their products like oh, this is just like Gibson built in the 1950s. As much as it annoys me that like they keep hearkening back to the same old song and dance, it is nice that there are companies out there who are offering a variety of lower output humbuckers instead of everybody just telling you high gain, high gain, high gain. So I do love that.
Yeah, the only thing I wish they would stop it with the horse shit. You're winding pickups. This isn't like you're not in a lab trying to sit there mixing chemicals going, we're so close to the original formula. You're winding a fucking copper wire around a bobbin. Spare me.
I'm just glad that they're winding less of the wire around the bobbin. That's all.
Right. This is exactly the theatrics of, oh yes, we've figured out exactly what. Yeah, you know who else figured out what Gibson did back in 57? Everybody. Everybody's figured it out. Everybody knows the fucking secret. It doesn't matter. Wind the fucking pickup. If it sounds good, we'll buy it.
The evil geniuses at XYZ Pedal Corporation have finally figured out the perfect distortion pedal. It has a volume, a gain, and a tone.
Right.
They're set up in a triangle.
Exactly.
It's an odd shade of green. Huh, this is new. Never seen one of these before.
We finally figured out what makes the Tube Screamer special. Oh, you think so, Hot Shot? They got everyone's passing around the circuit board around for the last 30 years. You finally figured it out. But you know what I mean? It's like when Gibson came out with the burst bucker, they basically knew that the pickups were underwound, the magnets were miscut, and that the windings were inconsistent on they were not match coils. All right. Run with it. DiMarzio Fred, they use 42 gauge wire on one spool and 42 on one, 43 on the other. Okay. Love the pickup. Sounds great. But some of these guys are out there. Yeah, we voiced it. You voiced it? You're winding wire around a bobbin. Like, we get it. This isn't like Abigail Ybarra was winding pickups at probably 15 years old. I have no idea how old she was when she started. This is my disclaimer. But she was 15. She was 13 years old when she was winding pickups at Fender.
Right.
Because it works like a sewing machine. They sit there and hit their foot and the thing's going around.
Did she, I wonder if at the beginning, if she had one of those little LED counters that tells you how many windings you're up to. She's like, do you think that she was like, I'm at 2,800 right here. Ah, shit, I was supposed to be at 2,740.
Right.
This pickup's got to go in the trash.
She's watching a soap opera on the little TV over here, and she's like, oh, geez, this is a hot one. Here's a hot pickup. Right? She's watching.
How dare you try to demystify this industry?
Well, it's ridiculous. But it is so absurd because all these new pickup guys come out and they're all like, oh yeah, I figured it out. I really captured it, and especially if you're going to use it with this tone wood. There's a guy, I don't know if you ever seen this guy's site. It's called Trogly's. He does like, and he buys like rare guitars and talks about them, and then he sells them on reverb.com. Anyways, he was talking about what's that wood? What's the wood the original Flying V was? Carina. He's talking about Carina wood, and he's like, it's like mahogany with a little bit more focused mids. And I wanted to just go through my screen and slap him. Focused mids.
I used to know a girl named Karina. She was really cute.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? It's like, oh, this has focused mids. Oh yeah, this is really gonna sound different when you get your pickups in it, and just a total dink. And it's like, and you know, anytime some of these people do this, it's like they never wow you with the playing. It's always like, here's an A chord, thank you. Like, I mean, it's just whatever. I just find it's like, you know what has focused mids? My amp. I can. Here's the mids. Let me squint my eyes and focus on it, and I'm gonna pull them up, pull them down. I have a whole EQ over here. It's unbelievable to me.
If there's any of our listeners out there have deep pockets, Dave and I are about to embark on a new venture you could be a part of. It's called Snake Oils Pickups and Pedals.
Exactly.
We're going to be manufacturing in China for big profit margins, but you can, and we don't even need any new designs because we're just going to be using all these old designs. But
not only did we figure out what Gibson was doing,
yeah, the marketing is going to be slick.
We're using Carina wood bobbins.
Yeah,
for more focused mids on our PAFs.
Oh baby.
I remember Grover Jackson once told me, he said he had to take apart, what is it called, like a Tiesca Del Rey, those old and he had it, and somebody's pickup like wasn't working, and he had to repair it, so he had to do a rewind on it, and he took it apart, and he said the bobbin was made out of cardboard.
Right.
He's like, these pickups, he's like, his whole life he's heard how revered they were and how they're the best, and here they are made out of cardboard. And so it's like, it was a testament. We were having a conversation how companies come out and they say, we use the best parts, and he was like, what does that mean? It doesn't mean it's going to sound better, whether your plastic is better than my plastic, whether it's like, it was a very poignant point.
Poignant.
Yeah. He also was hysterical because we were talking about the Wilkinson tremolos, and he was like, oh, Wilkinson makes the best tremolo system, I think, out there. And I was like, better than Floyd Rose? He's like, don't be ridiculous.
That's funny.
Well, because
go to 510, everybody. Go to 510.
Well, he was basically saying, if you want to deal with a Floyd Rose and deal with the locking nut, it is the greatest system there is. But talking about systems that you don't want to deal with, you know what I mean? Let's talk about something that that was kind of like it was pretty funny.
Now, I've never owned a guitar with a real Wilkinson. I think I've had one before that had like the Korean version of the Wilkinson. What's that, the VS100 or whatever?
Yeah.
But I've never actually played a Wilkinson that was like a high quality one, so I can't speak to it.
Yeah, Trevor Wilkinson.
But
I think they're great stuff. They're great. And I showed you that video on the Man. I showed you the video on that guy Man. I guess he was PRS's best friend and one of his closest friends, and was the guy who manufactured the bars for him.
Hardware. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's very cool. So what's that company?
That is Man, MANN, Man-Made.
Man-made hardware.
Yes.
So if you want something,
I think you just look up Man-Made USA. I think it's called on the website or something.
Right. But if you want hardware that's consistent with the PRS quality, there you go. That's the guy. And that's going to be super good hardware. You have that on one of your guitars.
On the black one. Remember when I showed you that?
So it retrofits a vintage style Strat bridge.
Yes.
And it's a drop in.
Yeah.
Killer. How does the bar go in? The bar pops in, screws in?
Nope, just falls in. I think
is there an Allen screw to tension it?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah.
So anybody out there with a Mexican Strat or a vintage style Strat that wants to upgrade their system, there you go. Man-made. Brass saddles?
I don't remember. It's in the other room. Not that I think it matters, because I don't, but
it's It's got brass saddles for the warmth.
This guitar has brass saddles. By the way, this guitar is a G&L tribute series made in Indonesia. This thing plays just as well as any USA Tele.
So who made that?
G&L.
So who made it?
Well, it doesn't. It just says G&L Guitars Indonesia.
Doesn't give you a serial number?
Yeah.
What's it start with?
131.
It doesn't give you like the W or anything?
No.
Yeah, I wonder who makes that then.
Yeah, I don't know who makes this, but I'm telling you, this thing.
It's a ripper, huh? It's a ripper.
Big jumbo. Look at the size of the frets.
Yeah, they're frets, all right.
Those are frets. And yeah.
So I had one last thing that I saw that I forgot to mention a few minutes ago. Speaking of innovations, and I don't know if we want to really consider it an innovation, but technically it is, so what the hell. Cort has developed something that they're calling Evo Rose. And what this is it's a composite replacement for rosewood for their acoustic guitars. So this is a environmentally friendly, compliant with CITES agreement solution, basically. So I will be interested to see how widely adopted that's going to be in the industry. Cort is one of the largest manufacturers of guitars on the planet.
Yes.
They make guitars for Ibanez, for Epiphone, for anything that you want to keep cool, basically.
Now it's the same thing. I'm taking it. This is going to be like Richlight, and the same thing as the Ebony. What would they call the Ebony one? The Ebonol, or whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the science behind it. It's a composite material, whatever the case is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But
why make it look like rosewood? Why not just make it dark like ebony?
I don't know.
Looks better.
They want it to look the way that everybody's used to. I mean, rosewood is the thing that is the primary target to hit for the CITES agreement, and it's the thing that's making companies jump through hoops in order to sell their products not only in the United States but in Europe. So this is aimed to be a solution for that. I'm just curious to see if, like in 2-3 years from now, everyone's import guitars are coming with Evo Rose, or if it's like largely forgotten.
Might be a cool thing. Like I said, I'm all for like that Richlight stuff. Like I think what's it on the Gibson guitars? It looks black like ebony. To me, it's like, and I'd have that on everything.
You're talking about the fingerboards.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is going to be a back and side material.
Ooh. Oh.
Hello.
That would be interesting.
I wonder if it'll look like the Martin X series. You remember the Martin, what was it, like DX?
Where I'm trying to forget it.
Yeah, it had the look and feel of a countertop, like a Formica almost.
Yes. Yeah.
Bright and whatever, but the material itself did look like a Formica printing.
Yeah, the guitar didn't sound that good, but it was an excellent thing to chop up tomatoes.
Yeah, basically. But I wonder if this is going to look better. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs, but I will have to report back from the show.
That's going to be our snake oil company that we have. That's our first guitar. Our guitars are going to be made from cutting boards.
Fantastic.
So it's like you can sit there and while you're playing a sad song, chop up an onion. Bring those extra tears in.
We've got to compile a list. If anybody can help us compile a list of all of the dead guitar players, we need to develop a line of signature models. So,
exactly.
Yeah, they can't turn us down if they're dead.
It's unbelievable.
I'm
thinking about the weight. How I can? Oh, it's going to be weight relieved cutting boards, like weight relieved cutting board guitar. That way, when you sit there and you say, "Now, if you can properly cut heads."
Oh boy,
that's awful.
We've gone off the rails, folks. So I'm guessing that the next episode should have something to do with the tail end of this episode. I will be I will be reporting live from NAMM, from the floor of the NAMM show. No, I won't
excellent.
be. I won't be.
Well, you should. You should do some videos from your phone. Hold your phone and be like,
you know what you're going to hear? You're going to hear, well, you'll see this, and you're going to hear
right.
chatter, 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 chatter from everything around. It's so noisy on the floor of the NAMM show that if you're dumb enough to be one of those folks that goes to an acoustic guitar company's booth so that you can test out an instrument, you don't hear that instrument. You don't hear any of it. Dude, it's just like a cacophony of noise for 4 straight days. So, nope, I'm not going to be reporting from the show. However, I will report back from the show on our next episode. So if I find anything very cool, you're going to hear about it.
Nice.
If I find anything that's really not cool, you're going to hear about it.
I mean, like I said, I find this show to be utterly boring. So you're going to find, like, here's my prediction. You're going to come back and say there was a couple of cool pedals. Bogner has a new amp, probably. That's cool. But I mean, as far as anything ground shaking, going to be like, no. Maybe you'll find another an IO that you like. But I got to tell you, my whole setup, I haven't used an IO here. I'm basically just using I'm everything USB, and I'm using Voice Meter Banana to control everything. And it's got the latency down to the lowest, and everything comes in nice. It's like in the middle. I don't hear that mono stuff you get with some, which I hate.
I get it.
Yeah.
And with that, shall we say break?
Let's call it a day. Yeah, I got to go off and teach. I got to hit the gym and do some stuff.
We didn't do a whip around today, so we're gonna have to remember that for next time.
I
feel like the audience gets gypped if we don't do. Oh, you're not allowed to say gypped anymore.
Why?
Because it's a reference to gypsies. It's racist.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. My apologies to our gypsy fans.
That's gonna go into the Ronnie James Dio song "Gypsy."
Oh, it's a great one.
Oh, fantastic! What number NAMM is this going to be?
Well, for me?
No, just in general. How many NAMMs were there?
2019. They've been doing them since the birth of Christ. No, I don't know. 50, 40, 30. Stop me when I get it right.
No, I think it might have started. My guess would be in the 70s.
Yeah.
In fact, let's make a guess, and then we'll look it up and do a whip around.
We get to have a whip around.
All right, so let's.
And you thought you were shorted.
God, I'm almost thinking it would be 68, 69. I'm going to go the first year for NAMM, and I'm going to make a guess of saying my first year of guess is 72.
Which would make it, what, 37? No, 47. You're saying 47?
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna go shorter than that. I want to say 76 is the first year. So I'm going with 43 years.
Oh, you might be right.
Oh, I don't know. Let's look it up.
Yeah, it might even be later than that. Might even be 79. This could be 40.
History of, if we're both wrong, we're completely. Somebody's going to leave and say these guys don't know anything.
But I'm going to re-guess and say it might be 78. 79 might have been the second year.
All right, here we go. We might be way wrong. Oh my God. Holy hell. Are we freaking wrong? We're so wrong. NAMM is born on 1901, and the first trade show is held in 1902.
Seriously?
I'm dead serious. NAMM is born. 52 members of the National Piano Manufacturers Association of America formed the National Association of Piano Dealers in America. The first annual convention and trade show was held in the YMCA Hall in Baltimore, Maryland. Dues were $5 per store, and that was in 1902.
Yeah, when did the name change to NAMM, though? That sounds like it was NAPTA.
Good question. NAPTA, you say?
Well, you said National Association of Piano Distributors of America or something like that?
Right. NAPTA was renamed to the National Association of Music Merchants in 1919, just before women's suffrage.
So you're saying I'm closer?
Oh, good.
I was
Lord,
close.
we are so wrong.
72 was closer than 76.
Now, but hold on. We get the opportunity to see what happened around 72. NAMM in 73, the Discover Music campaign is born.
73. Let me tell you
73 is
this.
when something was born. I don't know what it is.
So
but
in 1969, what was Woodstock? 69?
just so you guys know, this is how freaking wrong I was. I said 1976, and it specifically says on the NAMM historical timeline, in 1976, NAMM celebrates 75 years. Oh, God.
So what happens is, I'm saying in 69 you had Woodstock, right?
Yeah.
So all these bands are playing, and how many of those people do you think went to the show that were musicians were like, are you going to NAMM this year? You think anyone gave a shit about NAMM back then?
No, they were more concerned with civil rights, because I'm
No, I'm
reading
talking
right now
about the music.
in 1969, NAMM members received booklets produced by the American Retail Federation on the subject of riot survival and insurance as a result of civil rights unrest. So.
You know what I'm saying, though? I'm just saying
do.
nobody cared so much about the gear. They were out playing.
Yeah, well, the only gear that they had were accordions, pianos, classical instruments, and then Marshall cabinets and heads. Maybe Fender. There wasn't much in our way of the world, but yeah, I mean, everybody was out getting high.
What
And
do you mean? Martin Guitars was around.
I've never heard of them.
Gibson was around. Fender was around. Rickenbacker was around.
Yes, anything you'd like to keep cool.
Yeah, I can keep soda in here.
No, I'm obviously like slipping off my chair and losing my mind over here, but I can't believe we were so wrong on NAMM. Good Lord. Wow.
Yeah, I would have no idea.
1984, MIDI is introduced at the NAMM show.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, I just heard that.
What was it called before MIDI? It was D, beginning with the D.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was a different. MIDI replaced the other adapter. Like if you had like a Roland board before 1984, it would have.
Well, they call it a DIN, like DIN connector. They still refer to it as DIN sometimes, but it's definitely. I mean, MIDI's the protocol. The connector is DIN.
No. Before MIDI, it was a different connector.
MIDI City.
MIDI City was Speedwax store.
Yeah. I can't think of the word right now, but they're basically launching a project to develop what they're calling MIDI 2.0 right now. So they and it's the same guys. It's like Dave Smith and Roland and everybody else, but this time like Google is involved and maybe Intel is involved as well. I read last night that MIDI 2.0 is something that they're trying to do. So they're basically going to take the protocol and update it and make it more, I don't know, more universal than it already is. So that'll be interesting.
All right, John, very good. Let's get rolling. Let's get Roland or Korg on the phone. No, just kidding. All right, I'll wrap it you soon. I'll probably talk to you before you get to NAMM.
Sounds good, man. To all of you guys out there, have a great week.
As always, very good.
Catch you later.
You're listening to Guitar Talk with Dave and John.